I've never played my age. When I was 11, I played the Trollop, Nancy, and Oliver. And by the time I was 15, I had graduated to playing middle-aged Grace, the owner of the diner and bus stop, complete with pencil in my hair. Even in my bedroom, I always played the mother. I got my first box of makeup when I was 8. I had begged for this beautiful Estee Lauder set with all the colors. And when I unwrapped it at Christmas, I said, who can I put makeup on? And all of my female relatives fled the room screaming, and my father remained saying, you can make me up. And I used lots of lavender and pink, and he looked, like a really scary Southern belle. And the thing is, I've never felt my age either. I guess they call that having an old soul. There was a journal entry from high school where I had written, washed up at 16. And along with it was a picture of my eye, which I'd drawn painstakingly by candlelight, probably listening to music. And my eye was like a crater. It was an intensely wrought eye, like a guilt-ridden eye out of a Dickens novel. An eye that had the sound of Jean Moreau's voice, destroyed. And it's the way I always felt. And I wondered, feeling that way, looking out on the world, if that's what people could see looking back at me. And I've never behaved my age either. When I was a child, I used to follow around babies in museums. And now that I'm older, an adult, I just want to play and climb trees and talk in a baby voice. I seem to have skipped ingenue entirely. I went straight from playing the baby, and I remember Mama, to playing the chain-smoking, alcoholic mother of the effect of gamma rays on Man in the Moon Marigolds. It's like I skipped my own sexuality. This year alone, I've gone from playing a virgin hillbilly to a gypsy madam, and then the mother of 2 teenage girls in Brighton Beach memoirs. The depressive, snuff-addicted Masha of The Seagull. And then I was recently called back to play a 50-year-old dowdy German concierge, which leads me to wonder, how old am I? Who am I? This one time when I was in university, I was playing Maria Vasilyevna, who's Serebryakov's mother in Uncle Vanya. I was 21. It was the only time I've ever gotten to bare my breasts on stage, and it was in a completely unsexual context. And my mother had come to see the show, and I guess she didn't know the protocol because she left right after, and she didn't stay to meet anyone. And I was so proud to introduce her. So I was very hurt, and I went chasing her through the streets, crying. And I finally caught up with her at my apartment. And we argued on the stairs, as only a mother and daughter can. And then in this moment of quiet, I looked at her. And my face was a reflection of hers. I was still wearing my stage makeup. And all the places where I had darkened my divot and had lines around my mouth and my gathered eyes, they were all painted to look like her. And I thought, I'm going to look like that one day. And the other day I was looking in the mirror and I do. All the places where I've glided my eye pencil in dark shadow are recessed now, as if the repeated application of illusion has aged me. My face is changing. It's finally caught up to the way I feel.
When I was a boy, I used to look in the mirror and I used to see this kid. And I thought he was a pretty kid. You know, he had high cheekbones and smooth skin, and I had this long, flowy, curly hair. I wanted to be a rock star, you know? In fact, I was Bon Jovi before there was a Bon Jovi. And now I look in the mirror and I just see an old man. And I see wrinkles and lines and bags under my eyes, and my skin's breaking out every once in a while. I always think, well, what the hell happened to me? And I remember when I was younger, people used to say to me, oh, you look like your father. Everybody said that. You look like your father. And I used to hate that because I didn't want to look like him. I wanted to look like me. And I didn't want to be him because he was always mad at something. You know, he was always telling me about life and how hard it is. And it's always a struggle. And it's never good. And I didn't agree with that. I always thought there was something fun and good about life. But he was always trying to teach me something different. And so I made his life as difficult as I could by constantly bucking him. And we would fight all the time. I remember he would tell me over and over again two things at the end of every argument. And he used to point down his nose at me and say, number one, I know a lot more than you think I do, and one day you're going to realize that. And he would always say, I'd laugh at that like, yeah, whatever. And he would say, totally serious, you're going to miss me when I'm gone. And I'd laugh in his face, as if. And then I noticed my face in the mirror again as I got older, that there were those lines and things showing up, and youth and my hair kind of faded real quick. And I thought, life is slapping on that stranglehold that he told me about, that I never listened to. And I wanted to call him and tell him that. But it was too late. At his wake, I sat there listening to family tell me, uncles and cousins, wow, you look just like your father. You look just like your father. And for the first time in my life, I didn't snap at that. And I sat and listened to the stories about his life and listened to people tell me how much I look like him and act like him and how I move my hands like him and how I laugh like him. And they would tell me how he'd handle certain situations because I ignored him my whole life. And I got a chuckle out of that. And as I examined my life, sitting there at the end of his, all I could think was he was right. He was right about so many things. And even if I had known that when he was alive, I would never have given him the satisfaction of telling him that. But there are times even today that I want to call him and say, you were right about this too. But the one thing he was most right about, and I'll never forgive him for, is that I miss him more than you can know. I miss him every day. And I think about him every day. Not just because he was right, but because he was my father. And when I look in the mirror now, I don't see old and tired and shot. I don't see dashed dreams of what happened. I see character. I see experience. And I see the handsome guy my father was. And I have to laugh at that because when I look in the mirror and I see my face, I see his face. And it's all I have left of him. And I bring him with me wherever I go.